homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to Manjushri, homage to all the lineage masters. The supreme, profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before teaching. Let's continue with our study of the Bodhicharyavatara, Ocean of Good Explanations. In the Bodhicharyavatara, Ocean of Good Explanations, a couple of days ago, we already talked about offerings manifested by the power of the mind. We have now finished studying the section on mental offerings. In between, we paused for a few days to hold a Vajrasattva Dharma assembly. Now, we're picking up where we left off and continuing with this text. During the Vajrasattva Dharma assembly, everyone was asked to recite the Vajrasattva mantra 400,000 times. I think whether you attended the Dharma assembly or not, it's best if you can recite the mantra on your own, even if you didn't participate in the Dharma assembly. If you're able to recite the Vajrasattva mantra 400,000 times, then all the negative karma in your mind stream can be purified. This is something the Buddha himself clearly taught in the sutras. For us ordinary practitioners, it's simply impossible not to have created any negative karma. We've definitely accumulated a lot of negative actions. Some we remember, some we don't. But we've definitely committed these negative actions, and if we have, can we still achieve realization? It's extremely difficult. So for anyone with wisdom, confessing negative karma is essential. Confessing our negative karma is extremely important. Now let's move on and begin our explanation of the Bodhicharyavatara. As for how we'll approach this teaching, from now on, I'll mainly focus on the verses themselves. After we go through the verses, I'll refer to the content of Tokme Zangpo's Ocean of Good Explanations for further clarification. I'll follow his outline and sequence as the basis for my explanation, but I won't necessarily read every single word of his commentary out loud. We have to consider our time and also the content we need to cover. If I explain the verses and then read the commentary again, it often ends up repeating the same points. So I think for your understanding, it's not really necessary to go over everything twice. It's best if you can grasp the meaning of the verses, how Tokme Zangpo explains them, and also look into how other great masters and commentaries interpret them. You should carefully analyze these yourselves. The topic we are discussing today is offerings. Specifically, regarding this topic, we've already discussed material offerings. Among those, there are offerings with an owner and those without an owner. We've also talked about offerings manifested by the power of the mind. Now, subsection 4, offerings made through the power of aspiration. So, what are the offerings made through the power of aspiration? Actually, for this kind of offering, you don't need to buy anything at all, nor is it about visualizing an offering in your mind. It's not like that. Instead, it's about making aspirations from your heart. There's a difference between making aspirations and offerings manifested by the power of the mind. So what's the difference? And for example, with offerings manifested by the power of the mind, I visualize a certain kind of offering in my mind and then make the offering. But here, with offerings made through the power of aspiration, I make the aspiration in my heart that all sentient beings in the world may, through various means, attain happiness. This is a heartfelt aspiration I make. I wish that they will definitely attain such happiness and that their suffering will be completely pacified. Or, in front of the supports of the three jewels, I aspire for rains of jewels and flowers to descend. The following verse expresses this. And furthermore, may there extend clouds of attractive offerings with lovely tunes and harmonies that soothe all beings' sufferings. In this verse, furthermore means, in addition to what we've already discussed, since we already talked about offerings manifested by the power of the mind and so on. Besides those, we should also make offerings in front of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas or in front of all the objects of offering. What kind of offerings do we make? We offer melodious, moving, and deeply touching songs, songs of praise that generate great joy the moment one hears them. We can offer these songs or music and so on. Of course, among such offerings, there are many different kinds. For example, nowadays there are musical instruments and singing, especially instrumental music. Instrumental music such as drumming, blowing conch shells, and so on. These beautiful sounds can also be offered to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And then there are also songs sung by people. For example, in the world today, many famous singers sing very beautifully, and people enjoy these songs. Such songs can also be offered to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or through such music, beautiful melodies and enchanting sounds. May all sentient beings in the world have their desire, anger, and ignorance, as well as the all-pervasive suffering of conditioning, the suffering of change, and the suffering of suffering, all their fundamental and secondary sufferings be completely pacified. May these beings always dwell in a life filled with happiness. That is to say, may clouds of auspicious happiness always remain for these beings. May they always abide, always be present before them. So, does making such aspirations in our hearts have any power? It has great power. We should always think in this way. Whenever we hear a song or some music, or even while reading and hearing beautiful music, or when we hear Buddhist chants such as Amitabha, or the music from the radio, all these sounds we can visualize offering them so that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are delighted and that all the suffering of sentient beings is completely pacified. For example, in the 100 Deeds, there is a story like this. At that time, Buddha Shakyamuni entered the fire yoga meditation. While he was in this meditation, Indra brought the king of the Gandharvas to the entrance of Buddha Shakyamuni's meditation cave. Then he began to play beautiful music to offer to the Buddha. When offering this music to the Buddha, Mahakashyapa emerged from his meditation. Later, Buddha Shakyamuni, of course, in reality, the Buddha does not have the phenomena of entering and emerging from meditation, but for the sake of sentient beings, he sometimes appears to be meditating or entering samadhi. In this way, the Buddha manifested the appearance of emerging from meditation and praised the music and the beautiful sounds. So, in our daily lives, whether in Han Buddhism or Tibetan Buddhism, many great masters use various skillful means, such as music and dance, to attract the minds of many sentient beings. Once their minds are attracted, they are then given Buddhist teachings. This kind of phenomenon also exists. For example, when His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche was alive, every summer, which should be exactly around this time of year, everyone would gather on the grasslands outside to sing Vajra songs and dance Vajra dances. These were offered to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Of course, the Vajra dances and songs have profound and secret meanings. Just as Mipham Rinpoche explained in related treatises, there are very profound meanings. Even on the surface, they bring great benefit to people. For example, if we are giving a Dharma teaching today, not many people may come. But if we hold a Buddhist music concert today or a Buddhist singing event at that time, thousands of people will gather here. In the past, when we held Dharma assemblies, not many local villagers would come to attend. But when we announced that we would perform Vajra dances, then thousands of people would be thrilled to join. People would ask, "When will you sing the Vajra songs? Can I join? I want to sing and dance too." Many people really enjoy this. In the past, in Singapore, there were also many Buddhist groups in Singapore who used such skillful means to benefit sentient beings. Many Buddhist organizations also use this approach. So in the future, not all our actions need to be strictly according to the Pratimoksha vows of the Hinayana. There is not just one way to benefit sentient beings. Of course, for those who have truly abandoned themselves and no longer pursue their own interests and act solely for the benefit of others, such great bodhisattvas, perhaps ordinary people may not be able to accept their behaviors. But in any case, there are very profound and secret meanings behind these actions. Through these skillful methods, many sentient beings can obtain happiness. In daily life, people may have deep afflictions and suffering in their hearts, but when they hear Buddhist music, when they feel the peace and compassion of Buddhism, which brings them a sense of coolness and relief, their afflictions can be immediately pacified. So, when it comes to the actions of some great masters or certain practitioners, we should not judge them solely by our own narrow views. Of course, according to the Pratimoksha perspective of the Hinayana, monastics are not allowed to sing or dance. Everyone should be aware of this. So, generally for monastics, if you use worldly singing and dancing to attract people, that may not be so appropriate. But sometimes, through Buddhist songs and beautiful sounds, we can attract and help sentient beings. Nowadays, in places like Taiwan and Hong Kong, many singers sing the Avalokiteshvara mantra, Amitabha, the Great Compassion mantra, the Heart Sutra, and so on. There are many Buddhist songs and chants for everyone to listen to. In daily life, We often see even non-Buddhists playing these melodies in their cars. In fact, this plants a virtuous seed in their mind stream. I think this is very important. So if you have a strong motivation, then, as long as it is beneficial to sentient beings, you can do this using various methods. I heard that when Master Hai Tao went to Japan, some people invited him to go to karaoke. He said, as a monastic, I can't go there. But they insisted, come, it's fine. Finally, he said, all right, I'll go with you once, but please don't tell anyone. After he went, he gave people very nice malas and some Dharma books. In this way, some people in the entertainment circle gradually became interested in Buddhism, which greatly benefited their lives. So, those with strong altruism find all ways to help others. Therefore, in certain situations and contexts, for the sake of beings, there are also such permissions and skillful means. But if we still have much selfishness, desire, and anger, especially if we have not eliminated our bad habits and we are not confident in ourselves, it may be better not to go. Originally, you wanted to benefit sentient beings, so you went to such places, but ended up getting caught up in it yourself. You could not extricate yourself, and that is very unfortunate. So, some people have good intentions, but end up failing in the process. This can happen, so everyone should be mindful of this. In any case, when we visualize, we should realize that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions reside everywhere. And through the power of our aspiration, offering beautiful songs to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas so that all sentient beings may attain happiness, we should make aspiration in this way. Next, let's look at the second aspiration. The verse says, may rains of gems and flowers and more continuously shower down on all the jewels of the true Dharma, as well as on stupas and likenesses. What this means is that we should also make the aspiration that all kinds of precious things in the world, like agate, coral, turquoise, and so on, as well as all sorts of jewels and flowers, will rain down continuously. Not just once or twice, or only occasionally, but forever, constantly, without interruption. And where do they fall? They all fall before the 3 jewels, especially the Dharma treasures. These jewels and rain of flowers fall before the stupas and in front of the images of Buddhas as well. Here, the Buddha's body is represented by the statue, the Buddha's mind is represented by the stupa, and the Buddha's speech is represented by the Dharma treasures. So at all times, we should visualize and aspire that countless offerings, flowers, pearls, and so on, will fall like snowflakes from the sky, taking on all sorts of forms as offerings. And may they always constantly fall or drift down before the 3 jewels. As for the 3 jewels, I think everyone is quite familiar with them. For example, when we talk about the Dharma treasures here, what do we mean? Actually, the Dharma treasures refer to both the content and the words. In terms of words, it includes the Tripitaka and 12 divisions, as well as the countless treatises composed by later great masters and scholars. All of these are included in the Dharma of transmission, such as the Buddhist scriptures and treatises we often see in Buddhist libraries today, as well as the Buddhist books, VCDs, DVDs, software, and discs that are distributed in Buddhist settings nowadays. All of these can be included in the Dharma of transmission. They all fall under the category of the Dharma of transmission. As for the Dharma of realization, even if we give rise to a moment of faith, in our ordinary mind stream, a moment of compassion, or a moment of right view of emptiness, all the way up to the Bodhisattvas who have attained the bhumis and the Buddha's own boundless compassion and wisdom. All these states of great compassion and wisdom are included in the Dharma of realization. So all of the Dharma can be divided into the Dharma of transmission and the Dharma of realization. Just as Vasubandhu said in the final verse of the Abhidharma Kosha, all of the Buddha's teachings can be included in these 2 categories. No matter where the Dharma of transmission and realization are, we should aspire that these teachings and realizations will always remain in this world, and that countless offerings will constantly appear before the Dharma of transmission. When these offerings appear, may countless beings also rely on the Dharma of transmission and realization, and thereby benefit their own mind streams. So, as we work to spread the Dharma, we should always keep this in mind. What should we always remember? The Dharma consists of just 2 aspects, the Dharma of transmission and the Dharma of realization. The Dharma of transmission refers to the written words, the texts, and scriptures. Suppose these are lost, like during the Cultural Revolution. Almost all the scriptures and treatises were destroyed. At that time, the Dharma of transmission suffered great damage and destruction. It was a historical catastrophe. But what about the Dharma of realization? Was it destroyed as well? Of course, some people may have developed wrong views, but there were also many people whose mind streams remained full of gratitude to the Buddha, compassion for sentient beings, and a deep connection to the Dharma. And for them, there was not the slightest decrease or loss. This kind of situation did exist. So in such cases, we can say the Dharma of transmission was damaged, and the Dharma of realization was also affected to some extent. Nowadays, in some Dharma centers, both the Dharma of transmission and realization are present. In some places, even though the Kangyur and Tengyur are neatly arranged, if people don't study, read, or practice them, then the Dharma of transmission is there, but the Dharma of realization is missing. So in the future, when we talk about spreading the Dharma, of course, printing scriptures and making CDs is one way to do it. But the most important thing is to truly understand the meaning of the Dharma yourself. This is very important. Once you understand it, it's not enough to just keep it to yourself. Whatever realization you have, try your best to share it with those sentient beings who have a karmic connection with you. Actually, there are many people around us who have virtuous roots. Even if you just teach them a little about Amitabha practice, or introduce a little bit of the benefits of bodhicitta, or explain the power of some basic Dharma mantras, gradually their mind stream will begin to change. This kind of change is what we call the Dharma of realization. So when we talk about spreading the Dharma, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to sit on a high throne or hold some grand ceremony. It does not always appear in that way. Actually, if you can help someone change even a little, or if their mind changes, someone who was once unkind becomes kind, or someone who used to have wrong views about the Dharma now develops right view, this too is a way of spreading the Dharma. No matter what kind of Buddhist you are, I think everyone has the opportunity to spread the Dharma. It's just that some people don't make use of these opportunities. Here, this wondrous Dharma should be understood in this way. Now let's move on to talk about relic stupas, or stupas in general. Just now we discussed the wondrous Dharma, and now we'll talk about stupas. Stupas are something we're all quite familiar with. For example, from the Vajrayana perspective, there are the Kalachakra Stupa, the Guhyagarbha Mandala Stupa, the Guhya Samaja Stupa, and many other types of Mandala Stupas in Vajrayana Buddhism. There are actually quite a few different kinds of Mandala Stupas in the Vajrayana tradition. And then, according to the common classification in the Sutrayana, the sutras often mention 8 types of stupas. Among these 8 types, the first one we often mention is the stupa of heaped lotuses. This stupa commemorates Buddha Shakyamuni's birth in Lumbini Garden. After the Buddha was born into this world, King Shuddhodana built a stupa in Lumbini Garden to commemorate the Buddha's birth. This is what we call the stupa of heaped lotuses. The second is the stupa of enlightenment. The stupa of enlightenment is built to commemorate Buddha Shakyamuni's attainment of enlightenment at the Vajra seat in Bodh Gaya, India. He conquered the 4 Maras and attained complete awakening. Later, King Bimbisara and others built this stupa to commemorate the Buddha's realization and complete enlightenment. So this stupa is also known as the stupa of conquering Mara. The third is the stupa of turning the Dharma wheel. After attaining enlightenment, the Buddha went to Sarnath 49 days later and gave his first teaching on the 4 Noble Truths to the 5 bhikshus and other beings. The sound of the Dharma resounded throughout the world. This marks the beginning of the Buddha's teachings in our Saha world. Teachings of Buddha Shakyamuni, the 4th Buddha, began at that time. To commemorate this, the stupa of turning the Dharma wheel was built. It is also called the stupa of many auspicious doors. So this is the stupa of turning the Dharma wheel. The 4th is the stupa of miracles. I did not bring any models of stupas here today. Otherwise, it would have been quite nice to show everyone these different stupas. In the future, I will find ways to show everyone these stupas. At the end of Lama Yangtig, there are illustrations of the 8 great stupas. Sometimes when we print scriptures, we will include the 8 great stupas in the books as illustrations. In fact, printing the 8 types of stupas inside also yields the merit of building them. Now, as for the stupa of miracles, it is built to commemorate Buddha Shakyamuni's subduing the 6 main non-Buddhist teachers in Shravasti after the Buddha subdued them and gained victory. King Lisabi and others built the stupa of miracles to commemorate this event. The 5th is the stupa of the descent from heaven. The Buddha went to the heaven of the 33 to teach his mother Mahayana Dharma. When he returned to the human world, people built the stupa of the descent from heaven to commemorate this. So the stupa built for this event is called the stupa of the descent from heaven. The 6th is the stupa of reconciliation. The stupa of reconciliation was built in Magadha after Devadatta and others had tried to provoke a split within the Sangha. When the Sangha was reunited, the stupa of reconciliation was built to commemorate this. The 7th is the stupa of complete victory. When Buddha Shakyamuni was approaching parinirvana, many disciples requested him not to enter parinirvana. The Buddha told them, "Then you should build a stupa of complete victory for me." The stupa of complete victory represents the Buddha's Dharmakaya. Nowadays, you can find such stupas in many places, including in Han region. The 8th is the stupa of parinirvana. When Buddha Shakyamuni finally entered parinirvana in Kushinagar, at the time of his parinirvana, people built this stupa to commemorate the Buddha. This is called the stupa of parinirvana. Besides these, there are many other stupas throughout history. If we look at history, there have been countless stupas. Whenever we encounter these stupas, whenever we see a stupa, we should remember this. This represents the Buddha, and the Buddha himself permitted the building of stupas, especially the stupas built in Tibetan Buddhism. Even their specific details are described in the sutras. The sutras record their shapes and dimensions, all of which are very much in accordance with the Dharma. So when you see these white stupas, don't just think, oh, there's a white stupa here, another one over there. These stupas represent the Buddha himself. As beings in this degenerate age, we have no such fortune to see the actual Buddha. But in the scriptures, for example, in the sutra on the merit of circumambulating stupas clockwise and others, the various merits of stupas are clearly explained. There are many different forms of stupas. There are also stupas in Han Buddhism, as well as in Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and other places. These stupas also have different shapes, and their forms and appearances are quite similar to those found in Thailand today. No matter what kind of stupa it is, there is always a historical basis for it. For example, in the past, King Ashoka aspired to build 84,000 stupas. The shapes of these stupas in different places were not necessarily the same, but in essence, they are no different from the Buddha's actual body. So we should think that all the stupas in the world, whether in paintings or in actual places, should all be offered to and venerated. For us practitioners, this is extremely important. Whenever we see a stupa, we should immediately take off our hat and join our palms in respect. This brings us tremendous merit, especially in China, for example. In Beijing, there is the Buddha tooth relic stupa. The Buddha tooth relic stupa actually contains the real tooth of the Buddha. From a historical perspective, this is extremely rare. If you have the opportunity, you should make pilgrimages and aspirations. This is very important. There is also the Buddha finger relic at Farman Monastery, which is also extremely rare and precious. Besides these two in China, there is a Buddha tooth relic in Sri Lanka, but apart from these, such relics are very rare in the world. So whenever you encounter these stupas, you should offer flowers, water, or make prostrations in front of them. If you don't have the opportunity, you can recite offering prayers in your heart and silently make aspirations, wishing that in this world, flowers, pearls, and other offerings will always appear before these stupas, and that countless people will come to make pilgrimages and offerings. Of course, nowadays there are also many relic stupas of lineage masters and great teachers. There are quite a few of these kind of stupas as well. Sometimes when we visit Han monasteries, we often see the relic stupas of abbots or great masters in different places. Their relic stupas are found in various locations in the monastery. No matter what tradition you belong to, whenever you encounter these stupas, for example, if you are from the Tibetan tradition and you visit a Han monastery, when you see the relic stupa of a Han Buddhist master, you should also make prostrations and pay respects. Likewise, if you are a Han Buddhist, whether a monastic or layperson, when you visit Tibetan region, you will see white stupas everywhere in Tibetan regions. At that time, you should also join your palms and make prostrations. Besides, the merit of building stupas is also extremely great. In the past, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, 1 year, I can't remember which, he made the aspiration to build 10,000 stupas in this world. Everyone immediately responded to his call to build stupas. Due to the incredible power of His Holiness's aspiration, unlike us, after making the aspiration, people everywhere joined in, and in a very short time, more than 10,000 stupas were completed. So now wherever we go, we can see these stupas that were built back then. Almost everywhere. We can see them everywhere, especially in Tibetan region. These are the stupas that we make offerings to. Next, let's talk about the Buddha's image, which represents the Buddha's body. When the verse mentions the Buddha's body, it actually refers to the Buddha's image. So when we talk about images of Buddha Shakyamuni, it's said that back when the Buddha was alive, there was a beautiful woman from Sri Lanka. Her name was Princess Chandramala, also known as Jewel Garland. Yes, she was called Jewel Garland. After she made the request to the Buddha, he gave permission for his image to be painted. From that time on, it became a tradition to create painted images of the Buddha. There are many forms of the Buddha's images, whether carved or sculpted. There are also painted images, so many different types. Nowadays, if you go to a market of Buddhist items, you'll see all kinds of the Buddha images. There are thangkas, paintings, and also sculptures. So many different forms. No matter what kind of the Buddha image it is always worthy of our respect. Just as it says in the opening verses of the letter to a friend, for those with wisdom, it goes without saying that we should venerate the actual Buddha, but even images of the Buddha are worthy of our prostrations. For example, the images of the Buddha made during his lifetime. There is a statue depicting the Buddha at age 25. It is said that this statue, modeled after the Buddha's appearance at that age, is now preserved in the Tushita heaven, where it is venerated by many beings. And the famous artisan Vishvakarman, he made 2 famous Buddha statues, images of the Buddha at ages 12 and 8, serving as objects of devotion, and these 2 statues still exist today. One is in the Jokang temple in Lhasa, and the other is in the Ramoch temple. It's said that all 3 of these statues were personally consecrated by the Buddha himself. So when people make pilgrimages to them, it's really no different from meeting the Buddha. I've read in some historical texts, there's also mention of a sandalwood Buddha statue. It's said that in the past, this statue was kept in the Forbidden Palace in Beijing. Many historical records mention this. For example, even in the commentary to the Red Annals, it's said that this statue was kept in the Forbidden Palace in Beijing. It's said that this statue too was personally consecrated by the Buddha. There are such stories, whether it was personally consecrated by the Buddha or simply permitted by the Buddha. Whenever we see a Buddha image today, we should always remember, don't just see it as an ordinary statue or painting. We should always think this image is no different from the Buddha himself, and we should aspire that all the most beautiful offerings in the world will always be present before these Buddha images. If we can make such aspirations, then even these simple actions can actually generate vast merit. As practitioners, we should always make such aspirations. This is very important. The next offering is the 5th type, known as the Unsurpassable Offering. The verse on Unsurpassable Offering goes like this: As Manju Gosha and the rest make offerings to the victorious ones, I offer to the Tathagatas, the protectors, and their offspring. What does this mean? Just as Bodhisattva Manjushri, Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, Bodhisattva Maitreya, Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, and all the other great Bodhisattvas, especially the 8 great Bodhisattvas, as well as the Arhats and noble ones, how do they make offerings to the Buddha? However they make offerings to the Buddha, As someone who has generated bodhicitta, I should also make offerings in the same way. I should offer to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas just as they do. This is called the unsurpassable offering. Why is it called the unsurpassable offering? Because its merit is truly immense. Ordinary offerings can't compare to it at all. There are often people who think of offering as just putting some money in a red envelope for the teacher or lighting some incense. This is what they think offering means. But if we haven't really studied the Dharma, we don't really understand the true meaning of offering. People think offering is very simple. I know how to make offerings. There's nothing to it. But in fact, even the simplest offering is not so easy to fully understand. Why? Because concepts like body offering, aspiration offering, and offerings manifested by the mind, many people have never even thought about these. And what is the right way to make offerings? What kind of motivation should we have? What is the object of our offering? What is the purpose? Many people don't really know these things. If you don't understand these yet, then you don't really understand what offering is. So here, the merit of unsurpassable offering is truly beyond words. It's simply inexpressible, truly vast. Why is that? Take Manjushri, for example. He is the foremost in wisdom among all bodhisattvas. Manjushri is the embodiment of all the Buddha's wisdom. He is the very essence of the wisdom of all Buddhas and bodhisattvas. That is Manjushri. Manjushri's meditation, his realization, his retention power, his wisdom, all of these are incomparable. The way he makes offerings and the merit of his offerings are simply beyond what we ordinary beings can even imagine or compare to. For example, if Manjushri offers a single flower, the motivation and method behind it are completely different from how we make offerings. The same goes for Samantabhadra's offerings. Earlier, in some commentaries, I've explained the offering clouds of Samantabhadra. Regarding the visualization of the offering clouds of Samantabhadra, for example, from the heart and mouth of Samantabhadra, or from our own heart and mouth, countless rays of light radiate out. At the tip of each ray of light, countless Samantabhadras appear, and from the heart of each Samantabhadra, more rays of light radiate out. At the tip of each ray, offering goddesses and gods appear, each holding countless offerings, making offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. This kind of offering is truly limitless and boundless. It's simply beyond the imagination of ordinary beings. We just think, I have one thing to offer, so that's my offering. But Samantabhadra's offering clouds are different. In the Avatamsaka Sutra, this kind of offering is explained in great detail. It's truly beyond comparison. There's nothing like it. The same goes for Manjushri, Avalokiteshvara, and so on. The merit of their offerings is also incredibly vast. As ordinary beings, do we have this ability? Of course we don't. As ordinary beings, we simply don't have this capacity. But if we want our offerings to become unsurpassable, what should we do? We should visualize in our hearts, I offer just as Manjushri does, just as Samantabhadra does, I offer in the same way. I think anyone can do it if they wish. We can offer in this way. If we do so, then even with our ordinary dualistic minds, we can still generate this kind of visualization. Just like the dedication verses say, when we dedicate, we often recite, just as Samantabhadra dedicates, I also dedicate in the same way. Just as Manjushri dedicates, I also dedicate in the same way. In fact, many pith instructions and teachings say that by doing this, we can receive the same merit and virtue as Samantabhadra and Manjushri. So we should really reflect on this. If we just make an offering without any visualization or intention, if we simply place the offering in front of the Buddha, is the merit great? Actually, the merit is not very great. For example, when you get up in the morning, starting tomorrow morning, when you offer flowers or incense, you should think like this. I will make offerings just as Manjushri makes offerings. Think of your lineage masters, including His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche and all the lineage masters of the past. Every Buddhist has their own root guru. However, your root guru makes offerings, you should aspire to offer in the same way. I believe that even someone like me, with such an ordinary and deluded mind, can still generate this kind of visualization. If you do this, then the merit, the Buddha himself told us, this merit is immeasurable and boundless. We often think, I know how to make offerings. There's nothing new to learn. I already understand offering. But actually we don't. If you haven't spent a long time studying and contemplating the Dharma, you basically don't understand these principles. Once you truly understand, you will naturally apply it to your daily practice. Since the Buddha himself has declared the vast merit of doing so, and we have complete trust in his Vajra speech, we definitely follow his advice. Every time when make an offering, for example, when you see your guru and you offer a red envelope with just 1 yuan or 30 cents inside, when you make this offering, even if it's just 30 cents, if you think, I am offering just as Manjushri would offer. If you visualize this way, the way Manjushri makes offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, then you will also accumulate the same vast merit. But if you think, well, everyone else is making offerings, so I guess I should too, and you offer something out of embarrassment, but your mind is stingy, or you feel a lack of respect, or you're just doing it out of obligation, thinking, if I don't offer, I'll feel awkward, so I'll just offer a little, then the merit of your offering is little. So I think it's not about the size of the offering, but about your motivation and your method, whether you are making offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas or to great masters. When you make offerings, do you have this kind of visualization? This kind of visualization doesn't require the profound view of Madhyamaka or the realization of the secret mantra teachings. So this method does not need the profound realization of tantric practice. Simply keeping this kind of intention is enough. And in the Jewel Casket Sutra, many great masters say that this method refers to the states of bodhisattvas on the 7th bhumi and above. For example, a bodhisattva on the 7th bhumi may appear to offer just a single flower, but that one flower can transform into thousands and thousands of flowers and be offered before the Buddha. So when people go to a temple or stand before a Buddha image to make offerings, everyone's state of mind is different. You might buy a flower, I might buy a flower, but when you make your offering, you might think, I will transform this one flower into countless flowers and offer them to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. I will offer just as Manjushri offers. If you think like this at that moment, the merit you accumulate is truly beyond words. But if someone else just buys a flower and simply offers it with no visualization, then they only receive the merit of offering a single flower. Or if someone thinks, I'm offering this flower today so that I'll be happy and healthy, while another person, as we've discussed before, offers for the benefit of all sentient beings everywhere, then its merit is completely different. So when we study the Dharma, we realize that even with simple practices, not to mention the profound views or high realizations, even with basic practices like offering, generosity, or keeping precepts, many people don't really understand the methods and details. That's why people today really need to study the Dharma. If you don't study the Dharma, but just say, I'm already a Buddhist, I'm so accomplished, but in your actual conduct, you might fail to act in accordance with the Dharma at all. So this is the teaching on unsurpassable offering. As Mahayana practitioners, we should always strive to make unsurpassable offerings in our daily lives. This is something we can all do. Be sure not to forget it. Next, we come to the 6th type of offering, the offering of praise. The offering of praise is described in the verse as follows: I extol the oceans of qualities with oceans of melodies of praise. May clouds of hymns in praise of them arise just so continuously. The meaning here is that we offer songs of praise using melodious voices and music to praise the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who possess oceans of immeasurable qualities of body, speech, and mind. These offerings, these beautiful songs, become clouds of auspicious hymns, forever drifting and gathering before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We should cultivate this aspiration in our hearts as well, whenever we hear beautiful songs or music. Whenever we hear these sounds, we should visualize in this way. This kind of visualization also brings great merit. Or if you have a good singing voice, you can often sing songs in praise of the 3 jewels in front of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or sing songs that praise the Buddha. These are all appropriate. By singing these songs, you actually accumulate great merit for yourself. Nowadays, there are some Buddhists with good voices who, whenever they see a Lama, say, Lama, I used to sing in such and such a place. Should I sing a pop song for you? But if you sing a pop song, it's hard to say whether the Lama will be pleased or not. Some people can't really tell the difference between pop songs and songs about the 3 jewels. Some Buddhists are overly attached. Even when a Buddhist song starts with a certain rhythm, they say, don't listen, that's pop music. But in fact, they don't even know what pop music is. Some people really can't tell the difference. But actually, it doesn't matter what kind of sound it is. As long as your mind is pure and sincere, and you generate joy for the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and your Vajra Guru, this brings tremendous merit. Because the three jewels are truly the most supreme field of merit, and whatever offering we make before the three jewels will definitely result in such power and effect. In the Jewel Lamp Sutra, it is also said that if you offer pure offerings to the three jewels, you will quickly overcome the four maras and attain enlightenment. So this is also taught in the sutras. Also in the Ksitigarbha Sutra, in the Tibetan version of the Ksitigarbha Sutra, a similar teaching is also introduced. In the Chinese version, it is there as well, but I haven't checked whether this specific teaching is included. In the Ksitigarbha Sutra, it says that all the happiness of the three realms, it arises from the power of the three jewels. Anyone in this world who wishes for happiness and well-being must make offerings to the three jewels. Of course, there are many ways to make offerings to the three jewels. For example, with oceanic melodies. Here, oceanic melodies means sounds that are immeasurable and boundless, just like the ocean, which cannot be measured in terms of time or direction, truly limitless. If you make offerings with such vast and boundless sounds, the merit is truly immeasurable. The same principle applies, whether it's your voice, your actions, your mind, or any material offering. As long as you make offerings before the supreme field of the three jewels, the merit is truly inconceivable. So whenever we have any offerings, even if it's just a little, we should offer it to the three jewels with a pure and sincere heart. Making offerings to the three jewels is extremely important. If we don't make offerings to the three jewels, but only use them for our own impure body, actually there's not much meaning in that. So whenever you have the ability, even if it's just a very small offering, for example, a flower, you should respectfully offer that flower in front of a Buddha image. I've seen in many Han temples, many people do offer flowers and incense before Buddha images. This is actually very common. Sometimes, even though people's aspirations may not be that perfect, maybe they're just doing it for temporary benefit, even if it's just for short-term personal gain, it is still better than not doing it at all, because simply taking refuge, making offerings, or prostrating before the Buddha, the merit is still extremely great. So we should always rejoice in these actions. Now, the branch of offering in the 7 branches is complete. I have now finished introducing the many ways of making offerings. Next, we'll move on to the second branch of the 7 branches, the branch of prostration. The branch of prostration is described in the verse as follows: I prostrate, bowing as many bodies as there are atoms in all realms, to all the Buddhas of the 3 times, the Dharma and the sublime Sangha. When we prostrate, we should visualize in this way. In front of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we shouldn't just visualize a single person prostrating. As it's explained in the scriptures, when we prostrate, we should visualize our body multiplying into as many bodies as there are atoms. That is, an immeasurable number of bodies, countless and numerous bodies, all prostrating before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who possess immeasurable quality. With body, speech, and mind, we prostrate with the utmost respect. So, what are the objects of our prostration? We prostrate to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the past, present and future, those who are currently turning the wheel of Dharma and those who will enter parinirvana, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 3 times. We also prostrate to our own Vajra Gurus and so on. And to the Dharma, as we discussed earlier, we prostrate to the Dharma of transmission and realization, to all the authentic Dharma, past, present, and future. We also prostrate to the great Mahayana Sangha, such as Manjushri, Maitreya, and to the Hinayana Sangha, meaning any group of 4 or more fully ordained monks, including all monastics. These are all objects of prostration. We should prostrate to them with single-pointed devotion, as it says in the King of Aspiration prayers, With one body manifesting as many bodies as there are atoms in all realms, I prostrate to as many Buddhas as there are atoms in all realms. This means that our body transforms into countless bodies, and in front of the Buddha, we prostrate in countless bodies. Of course, there are many ways to prostrate: full-length prostrations, short prostrations, or, as in Han Buddhism, there are various methods. All of these methods are acceptable. But generally, in the Mahayana, as explained in the Sutra of Great Liberation, in Tibetan Buddhism, we follow the tradition of the lotus bud gesture. Usually the palms are not pressed tightly together, but are held like a lotus bud, as if about to bloom. This is the lotus bud gesture. When standing, the body should be upright. It's said that there are 4 kinds of straightness. If the body is straight, the channels are straight, the wind is straight, and the mind is straight. When you stand up, your body should be fully extended. When you kneel down, you perform the 5-point prostration. The 5 points are both palms, both knees, and the forehead. All should touch the ground. Then you stand up again, keeping your body straight, and repeat the prostration. The merit of this is truly immense. The Buddha once told Ananda that if one prostrates even once in this way, all the atoms from where one's body touches the ground down to the Vajra ground, as numerous as the atoms, one will accumulate the merit of a universal monarch, and this merit will never be exhausted. The virtue will never run out. So even a single prostration brings incredible merit. Therefore, when we prostrate, we must do it properly in accordance with the Dharma. It's very important to do it correctly, whether it's your physical actions or the way you prostrate. Everyone should learn properly and always do it in accordance with the Dharma. For example, when Milarepa went to see Lama Ngokpa, at that time, Lama Ngokpa was teaching the Hevajra Tantra to others. From a distance, he saw Milarepa prostrating. He told his disciples, "Look at the way this person is prostrating. It really looks like the tradition of Mapa Lotsawa." His way of prostrating is truly excellent. So, when we see someone prostrating, we can often tell if they have studied Buddhism before. If they have, their prostrations are often very proper and in accordance with the Dharma. Some prostrations, we may wonder where they learned them. The movements are a bit odd, but some people really like to show off, especially those new to Buddhism. When they first learn to prostrate, they'll say, "Lama, you just sit there. I'll start doing full-length prostrations for you." They feel that being able to prostrate is a great thing. That's fine, of course. It's good to do so. But no matter what, it's very important to prostrate in accordance with the Dharma. When you prostrate properly, the merit is truly immense. Next, the text continues. I prostrate to the sacred sites and stupas of the Bodhisattva. I also prostrate to the abbots, the masters, and the supreme adepts. At the same time, we should also prostrate to the relic stupas of the Buddha, as mentioned earlier, Buddha images, stupas, and also to the root of bodhicitta. What is meant by the root of bodhicitta here? It refers to the source from which bodhicitta arises in our own mind stream. That is, it arises through relying on a Mahayana master. This master is the root of bodhicitta. If you generate bodhicitta in your mind stream through a Mahayana text, then that text is the root. For example, if it's the Bodhicharyavatara, if you generate bodhicitta through the Bodhicharyavatara, then whenever you see the Bodhicharyavatara, you should immediately prostrate. As soon as you see the Bodhicharyavatara, you should kneel down and prostrate. Why do you prostrate like this? Because this book is the root of bodhicitta in your mind stream. This text is the very source of bodhicitta for you. So no one has any reason to stop you from prostrating. And when you see a great Mahayana place, it can also be the root of bodhicitta, such as Larungar or other sacred sites. I often think this myself. I've spent a long time at Larungar and have developed subtle right views and faith in karma. As for true bodhicitta, I can't say for sure, but at least a similar kind of bodhicitta has arisen in me. So, in the future, whenever I see this place, I will definitely want to prostrate. Some scriptures say that the root of bodhicitta can be a text, a master, or even a place. Also, you should prostrate at the place where your own teacher was born, taught the Dharma, or passed away. This includes the Buddha, the place where he was born, turned the wheel of Dharma, attained enlightenment, and finally entered parinirvana. The scriptures say that these places are no different from the Buddha's actual body. So if you ever have the chance to go to India or visit any of these places where the Buddha performed his enlightened activities, you should always prostrate at these sites. The same goes for great masters. Wherever your teacher or lineage masters have taught the Dharma, those places are also worthy of prostration. Why? Because it is from these places that we have received the power of wisdom. That is the source, the wellspring, so we should prostrate to them as well. At the same time, we should also prostrate to the supreme holders of discipline. Who are the supreme holders of discipline? For example, those who tirelessly practice the path of liberation and great accomplished masters of the secret mantra. No matter whether we practice Vajrayana or Sutrayana, all such great accomplished beings are worthy of our prostration. Some people wonder, as a monastic, can I prostrate to a layperson who is a great accomplished master? According to some Sutrayana texts, for example, the Brahma's Net Sutra says that monastics should not prostrate to lay kings or even to their own parents. The Nirvana Sutra, volume 6, also says that monastics should not prostrate to lay people. The four-part Vinaya also says that monastics should not prostrate to lay people. That is, to lay people, one should not prostrate. In the Kala Chakra Tantra of Vajrayana, it is also said that generally monastics are worthy of everyone's respect and prostration. They are the proper object of respect and prostration. Just as it says in the Sutra of Recalling the Three Jewels, monastics are to be respected and prostrated too. However, if a lay person has truly attained a very high realization, then even monastics can prostrate to such a lay person. So, if your teacher is a lay person and truly has high realization, if he or she is a truly great accomplished master, then even as a monastic you can prostrate to your teacher, even if they are a lay person. But regarding teachers, the Vinaya also says, if someone was your teacher but later returned to lay life, even after they become a lay person, you can still prostrate to them as your teacher. This is also mentioned in some Vinaya texts. But from the Vajrayana perspective, it must be a truly accomplished master. If they are not an accomplished master, then as a monastic, you should not prostrate to a lay person. But if they are a truly accomplished master, then it is appropriate to prostrate. Now, as for Khenpos and Acharyas, a Khenpo, as explained in the Flower Garland Shastra, is a teacher who has given you the bhikshu or novice vows. Such a teacher is called a preceptor and is also referred to as a Khenpo or acharya. We also prostrate to acharyas. In Vajrayana, all Vajra masters are called acharyas. In Sutrayana, acharyas are called preceptors or ritual masters. For example, the teacher who gives you confession, teaches you the Dharma, or gives you vows, or gives you refuge, they are all considered acharyas. Therefore, we should always prostrate to our own teachers and to our lineage masters as well. This is the meaning here. All right, let's stop here for today.
Bandara Badna Sadarda Bandara Badna Sada Bandara Badna Sadarda